Trump administration, and we're starting this evening with money, power, politics. According to Donald Trump, he runs the country and the world. That is what he told The Atlantic about his view of his second term in office. In the interview, Trump also pushed back on the idea that economic chaos would make him roll back his tariffs. He said, well, it always affects you a little bit. There's no red line or certain number that would make him change course. But it is not just Wall Street or the business community that's currently uneasy about Trump's economy. Recent polls are showing that most Americans disapprove of how Trump has handled the economy. Of course, Trump's team in public is brushing off all the polls and the worries, saying Trump is focused on putting Americans first. And while the business world is very concerned about the trade war with China, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, he says the ball, well, it's in China's court.
I believe that it's up to China to de-escalate because they sell 5 times more to us than we sell to them. And so these 125, 145% tariffs are unsustainable.
Meanwhile, Congress is back after 2 weeks off, and now Republicans in the House and the Senate have got to figure out how they are going to actually deliver Trump's agenda, including, of course, massive tax cuts and how they're going to pay for them. Today, Speaker Mike Johnson, stay with me for this. Speaker Mike Johnson met with the president and said the next few weeks will be critical. He has vowed to get the bill on Trump's desk by Memorial Day. Okay, Memorial Day. But the Senate leader said it could take a little bit longer than that. And then Secretary Bessent, who also met with congressional leaders today, set a new goal to pass the bill by the 4th of July. But put all of those timelines aside, I have called source after source after source, and none of this makes sense, at least not to me. The administration has pitched the use of tariffs in several different ways, but the scenarios don't support one argument. They actually cancel one another out. Secretary Bessent has argued that tariffs will pay for the tax cuts and pay down our massive debt. Those are his top 2 priorities. But at the same time, he is the chief tariff negotiator and has argued some of the tariffs imposed are untenable and is actively working on a number of deals. So my question, if we get the trade deals done and we drop the tariffs, how are we going to pay for the tax cuts and pay down our debt? Luckily, I have really smart guests here tonight. Maybe they can answer it. Our leadoff panel, Ron Insana, is here. CNBC senior analyst David Drucker, senior writer at The Dispatch, and Tyler Pager, New York Times White House correspondent. His upcoming book, 2024, How Trump Retook the White House and the Democrats Lost America, is out this summer. Ron, this doesn't make sense to me. How about you?
Well, no, because the president added another wrinkle, which was that he was going to eliminate the income tax for people making less than $200,000 and use the tariffs to pay for that. And at one juncture, he even said possibly eliminating all income taxes. You would require tariffs of about 125% to raise the $4 trillion plus that we gather in income taxes from individuals every year. So they have competing explanations for how they're going to use the money. The math ain't mathing, as they like to say these days. And there's just no explanation, no cogent explanation as to how they're going to accomplish all these things, particularly when you're talking about these tax cuts, which are not just an extension of the current cuts that were passed in 2017, but also additional cuts that could add anywhere from $5 to $11 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years.
David, Donald Trump has very, very loyal supporters, and he is a very, very good salesman. But the numbers don't lie. Can he continue to say things like this? We're going to cut taxes for everybody making under 200 grand when the numbers aren't adding up and it's impacting people at every level economically?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of different issues there. Remember, the president has campaigned on, and what's going to be in this reconciliation bill, at least we think, is an elimination of taxes on tips, an elimination of taxes on overtime, and an elimination of taxes on Social Security income, as well as a new tax deduction for financed automobiles as long as they're American made. So there's a lot that congressional Republicans have to try and slip in here, and they have to try and figure out how to make the numbers work, because in reconciliation, things have to balance out. That's how you're able to do it this way and avoid the filibuster. I think for the president's loyal base, they're going to give all of this time to shake out, and they have a lot of faith in Trump from their point of view as a businessman who knows how to deliver. And there's a deep distrust in government and institutions. And so when eggheads like us argue about math, they just say, you were the guys that have been arguing about math for years, and you got us into the Great Recession, and you mishandled the pandemic, and we're just pretty much done listening to you for the time being. Now, if the economy were to sink to particular levels, that base gets whittled away a little bit, and you start to lose not only massive amounts of independent voters, but you're going to lose some percentage of Republicans, and then the president and his party are in trouble. But I just think it's too soon to say that we're going to get there, because we're not there yet.
But we are hearing the warnings, right? Karl Rove goes on Fox News and says Donald Trump is in very bad shape on the economy. And yes, Karl Rove isn't inside the White House, but he is certainly a Republican this White House listens to. Tyler, what are they saying behind the scenes?
Yeah, I think there is real concern. I mean, this is the difference between campaigning and governing. One of the biggest talking points for Donald Trump as a candidate for president was railing against Joe Biden and the Biden administration when Kamala Harris took over the ticket, their stewardship of the economy. And the Biden administration struggled mightily to explain why prices were rising. And even as they tried to blame Putin or blame the pandemic, Americans ultimately felt the price hike at home, and that contributed to the unpopularity of the Biden administration. So Trump was successful in making the economy a centerpiece of his campaign, but they know that voters, when they head to the polls for the midterms, will be voting largely based on how they're feeling economically. And regardless of the messaging, and obviously Trump has leaned into this messaging argument about tariffs and is convincing his base, but ultimately they need to win over independents. Midterms are always hard for incumbent presidents. And so this is something that Republicans across Washington and across the nation are concerned about. Now, Trump is not someone that's going to lean into that and recognize that publicly, but privately behind closed doors, Republicans are acutely aware. And we saw Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick have some success with Donald Trump in explaining this as he put in this 90-day pause. Now, we'll see what happens over the course of the next few months with these trade deals and whether that's enough to get Trump to change course. But also, as Steph, you know, economists, analysts are worried that the damage has already been done and there's no way to just take the foot off the gas and release this and bring back the economic growth that we were seeing before the president put in these tariffs.
All right, but then let's talk about the 90-day pause, because Donald Trump said he's not flustered, he's not bothered by a little economic chaos, and he's going to do what he wants to do regardless of the markets. He's already proven he won't. Right? The markets, stock market tanked, bond market tanked, and Trump blinked and said, we're going to pause, we're going to lower the tariffs. So, I mean, Tyler just referenced Scott Bessent and Howard Lutnick coming to him. So